Life is a journey filled with twists, turns, and the miles in between.
And every mile matters, especially the ones we walk together.
I'm Tammy Sirmon.
And I'm Michael Sirmon.
Welcome to Every Mile with You.
This is where we share real conversations about relationships, resilience, and the everyday challenges we face.
And the joy, laughter, and love that carry us through.
From the big milestones to the quiet moments that mean the most.
We're here to encourage you, inspire you, and remind you
you're never walking alone.
Wherever we wander, we walk side by side.
Welcome back to Every Mile with You. I'm your host, Michael Sirmon, and here with my beautiful wife, Tammy.
It is so wonderful to be here with you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us.
So I know in our last episode, we had said that this time we would talk a little bit about hill country. And to be fair to everybody, we owe you an apology because while we do want to talk about hill country, we had forgot about the recent devastation with the floods down in that area. So we would like to put this off for another episode. And instead today, we're going to talk about something that is a little closer to our hearts right now. And we want to talk about the challenge of not losing yourself as you go through life, right? Seasons come, seasons go. And if we're not careful, we wake up one day and we're buried under a pile of other stuff, a pile of other identities that aren't us. And so with that, let's Tammy, what do you think on that? Is that a good topic to talk about?
I believe it is a very good topic. That is actually, for the last 2 days, what has completely been just churning in my heart and my spirit. Honestly, it stemmed from me trying to get some semblance of who I am, myself as an individual. And over the last many years, I myself have found my walk to be with anyone and everyone, but with myself at times. And this past year and a half, I would say probably closer to 2 years and a half. But I would definitely say within the last year and a half since we've moved back to Oklahoma, that I have really struggled with who I am, my identity, and just staying on the trail of where I thought I would see my life at this point. And so I guess I hope that resonates with you as well, and that I'm not in the boat by myself, babe.
Oh, no, it does. I mean, we've been married 38 years.
Yes.
And in that 38 years, we talked about a little bit on the first episode, I think, about how, you start off and you are, you grew up, you were a young, vibrant Tammy Rush, right? So much so that I met you when you were 12 and I fell in love with you immediately, right? And then you chased me around the world when you were 18 to remind me that we were going to be married.
Oh.
And well, something like that's my story. That's why I remember it. Yeah. But from then, right, we got married. Then you became, Tammy Sirmon or Tammy Rush Sirmon. It depends on
Tammy Sirmon.
Tammy Sirmon, other than the IRS forgot to change your name over. Right. So, but then we had kids. And then you became Eric's mom. Then you became Jonathan's mom. Then you became the mayor's wife. And then you became the coach's wife. And then you became the pastor's wife. And then you became the wife. Right. And somehow in that time you lost Tammy. Mm-hmm. And then, myself, and I talked about this on the Lead Well podcast, is you get so caught up sometimes that you become the title, not you, but people in general. Right. So with me, I had to be very careful because people wouldn't see me as me. They would see me as mayor. They would see me as pastor. They'd see me as manager or coach or VP or whatever it may be at that time. And
Pastor Mike,
right? Yeah. And the reality is we are far more than what we do. And if we're not careful, our identity becomes so output based, or our identity becomes so focused on our output that we start seeing our values really in our output. And then we become very transactional in what we do. And we lose our heart over in the process. Or worse, our heart gets trapped in some dark dungeon inside of us and screams out for, for validation, or I am here, and I am, you know, I am Mike, hear me roar type thing, right?
Right.
So I know from my side what it feels like. But as a mother, as a young woman who really, to be fair, had just started learning your identity, right?
Mhm.
Because you had just graduated high school, you're working on your own, you're still living at home with your parents.
Right.
And then you move straight from there into home with me.
Right. Into a life after we got married. Yes.
Right.
I it's crazy because our oldest son, he moved back home for a short season to help get his life just his eggs in a row, and so he is starting a brand new path. And he too was like me when he was young, and he went straight from being in high school to being in relationship and with someone special, and moving on through life. And at every turn there was always someone who he lived with at the time, and he never really had that season that a lot of gentlemen have an opportunity in, just being able to kind of have some quality time of for self-discovery, finding out what his likes and his dislikes are and things like that. And so I guess you had gone straight from high school immediately directly into the military.
That's true. Graduated one day and reported for service the next.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you did have, although you were with a bunch of fellow men, you did know what it was like to live out on your own, to just be independent
Right.
and follow after your dreams, follow your heart. And that ended up leading you into getting to live this extremely cool life, at least from my perspective, when you got to live in Italy
Right.
through the army.
Right.
And so I have never experienced that. I went straight from constantly being a young teenager who was a workaholic, and I do mean workaholic. I worked, if I wasn't involved in my youth group with my church, I was being a babysitter, a nanny, from being a nanny into working full time. And from working full time, I always were putting constantly other people before me.
Right.
And I never really, truthfully, I've had that moment of clarity of being able to just take that time, like you mentioned. Perhaps it was yesterday while we were visiting, or on one of the podcasts, talking about how recently you have made a point just to go out and just to kind of go outside and kind of connect your feelings
Right.
with nature, by sitting out in our chairs in the morning and just listening to the birds, trying to just soak in what God wants to impart in you in that morning,
Right.
or throughout the day. You just make that point.
Yeah.
And as you were talking about that, I don't want to take over. I just want to just kind of, over the last few days when you were talking about that, I just realized something, and I've realized a couple of different times, so I just shoved it out of my head. And I hope that some of our viewers, our listeners will, uh, hopefully maybe they will resonate exactly with what I'm saying. But for years as a designer, trying to design our homes, to once we moved and got located, and designing our homes, trying to create that amazing feeling of warmth and coziness, and just creating an atmosphere that invites our guests. I think I got so wrapped up in creating such this amazing environment because oftentimes we would have to sell our home to relocate again.
Right.
But I always wanted to create that environment that once that environment was created, I never took the time to enjoy the comfort of that environment.
Oh,
I was so busy
that's true. Yeah.
creating, and that's my whole life has been like that. I've always been so incredibly zoned in
Yeah.
on trying to make everyone else happy that somewhere along the way,
You lost you.
yes,
Right. We saw that when we finished the library. Right. We just finished the library.
our viewers probably don't know. Many of our viewers,
Okay. Yeah. A lot of you don't know, but we bought a 1930s WPA built library down in Poteau, Oklahoma. It started off, it was the community center.
it was when it was first created.
Yeah,
Yes,
created a community center, then became the first library. One of the local lawyers donated his books to start the library. And I mean, it was really good. It had a park. It had a lot of stuff with
a
it.
bird
A bird sanctuary. And we had bought a lake house down near Worcester that we were using for Airbnb as an Airbnb. And we were look for another property, and we ran across this. Our realtor, Don Johnston, really good realtor if you're in the Poteau area. He was, he said, or no, Tammy, he was going to show us some property, and we saw this other one, and Tammy said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, let's go look at it."
No, you didn't say, well, let's go look at it. That's not how the story happened at all.
Feels like it. I feel like I'm
No, that is not the truth.
Okay.
Our entire lives I say our entire lives, for about 20 plus years, we had talked off and on throughout the years about how we would love the opportunity to take an old schoolhouse, an old church, or an old library
That is fair. That's
and
fair.
create, yes, absolutely.
But that search, we started off this particular search looking for some hunting, right? And then
That's the way he likes to tell it.
that's where I like to tell it.
No,
Um,
when we were looking for the hunting land, what really happened was he wanted a piece of property that had a home and some land attached to it that was near a lake. Well, we looked and looked for property for the hunting and never found it, but that's when we found Lake Worcester.
right.
His timelines are getting confused.
That's true. I'm old, right?
And then we both, that was a God story, right? The story that we're trying to meander around, that is a God story within itself.
Right.
Because that one morning that morning, actually, the day that we went to look at the property, I had woken up and Michael and I, we had just been going through major home renovations in Claremore, where we had relocated from Texas. Then we immediately started home renovating the home that we had purchased. Well, we hadn't even been back home, I would say 6 months. Well, we both longed to have that property that he was talking about. And so we started looking for property. Long story short, that's when Worcester came into our lives. Well, we had been living at Worcester for almost a year. And that's whenever one day, keep in mind, I've been myself have been in full renovation mode since before we ever left Texas, because we were renovating that home to get it ready for resale whenever we could move back to Oklahoma. So we went from one renovation straight into another, and I'm making the bed one morning, and out of nowhere in my mind, I hear, or I think to myself, you need to buy 2 or 3 properties and to start a vacation rental. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking, Satan, get behind me. Are you kidding me? My life has been nothing but chaos for the last 2 years, and you're all of a sudden thinking this?
Right.
But I could not get that thought out of my brain. And so then you came home that day. Remember,
Yeah.
I had packed the car. We were on our way to go get away for a
I do remember
weekend
that.
at Worcester, which we always adored our time at Worcester. It was our reconnection really with nature. It was our first time of actually ever getting to really connect with nature on a level of being able where we actually lived in a place.
Oh, first time we actually saw just bald eagles just flying freely. First time we ever saw a golden eagle, which
Yes.
was really cool.
Oh yeah.
And the first time we saw the cedar trees shake.
Yes, the cedar trees shake. That
Yeah.
was phenomenal. But getting back on in line with the conversation, I had that thought. Well, then it was the craziest thing. I had already packed up the vehicle for Michael, so he wouldn't have to worry about anything. It's the first time I'd ever actually packed a vehicle. I'm the one that usually gets all the belongings, and then Michael's the one that packs it. So so it all fits in there properly.
Done right.
But he, it just made we were both so excited about getting away for that weekend. And so we were driving, we had probably gotten, I'd say, either a third of the way or 2/3 of the way, because it's about 2 hours or 2.5 hours from home, 2.5 hours. And so Michael said, I've been thinking. And I was like, oh, yeah? And he said, yeah, I've been thinking that we need to start looking for a property to make into a VRBO. And I was like, what? And he said, yes. I said, well, when did you start thinking that? He said, I started thinking it today. And I said, you are joking, right? And he said, no, I'm not joking. And then I got so excited because I had never thought about that. And keep in mind, Michael accidentally also got ahead of time. We had not made our little lake house into a vacation rental at that point. No,
Wow.
not until 2020 when the world shut down.
Yeah.
And we had to have an income because you had lost your job to downsizing, the company downsizing. So that's what steered us into making our lake house. And this was in 2019 when we purchased the library.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're on our way to this amazing weekend getaway. And Michael says, hey, why don't you look up on Realtor? And if we find anything, we can reach out to Don Johnston, to Don. And we can get with him and see if he can show us something this weekend while we're there. And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah, I am serious. And then I told him before that, I said, you are not going to believe this. When I was making the bed this morning, I had this thought that came to me that said, you guys need to look at buying a property, or we need to buy a property that has, 2 or 3 properties, and make it into a VRBO. And I'm like, so I was just floored, and we both couldn't help by that sign that it was definitely God that was steering us, right?
Yep.
So do you remember what happened after?
I do.
What happened?
We called Don.
Yes.
Team
Wait. Yeah.
But-
Gotta back up. You said, why don't you look online?
Right.
Right. So I opened my thing, and 3 things down immediately on my phone, I see this old library. And it has this staircase that is a double staircase that on either side, you walk up to it and you walk up to this big, beautiful door. And it's just
that's
magical.
That's all you could see. Everything else was just
Deeply wooded.
Yeah, woods and vines and yeah.
Right. And so I was like, oh my goodness. And Mike was like, what? And I mean, my eyes were about to pop out of my head. And he's like, what? As soon as he couldn't even see what I was talking about, I said, they have an old library for sale. I said, it's like 2-story. It reminds me of the one in Collinsville. I said, and they only want $59,000 for this property. And he's like, what?
And I'm
He's like, you got to show me this.
and I'm like, I'm not paying $59,000 for that.
No.
If they're asking 59, they'll take 45.
No. So anyway, he's like, you have got to show me these pictures. So when we could, he got to a point of being able to look at the pictures and
Okay,
he,
now you're not remembering it right. We have never waited till I could. We always would look at them right then, right? I did stop texting while I was driving, but I still surfed the.
oh my gosh,
Just joking. Moment of safety if you're going to use
You're-
hand or text, slow to the side and stop. So anyway, so we looked at it. We called Don, and so he was like, "Are you serious?
are you serious?
So we met him, and turns out that Don was actually the realtor that handled the sale before.
He
Of
said,
the bill.
yeah, he said that he had actually had contemplated on purchasing the property himself,
Yeah.
but he couldn't figure out what to do with it. And I said, I know what to do with it. I knew that that was supposed to be the property that we were supposed to make a vacation rental out of. But he, when I mentioned it, he said, oh, something like that. I don't know if something like that would go over
Yeah.
here. There's nothing like that here.
Right.
And I said, oh my gosh. So we actually were the very first people in that town to create something, because up to that point, there were no vacation rentals,
Right.
to our knowledge,
Just to our knowledge.
that was in Worcester, Oklahoma when we act. Now, keep in mind, we didn't do that immediately
Right.
with the library, but
Anyway, so we met with Don, and we're looking at the building, and somebody had turned it into an apartment,
yes,
into a studio home, and did a real. They did what they could do, right?
right. It was an elderly
This
gentleman.
elderly guy, so they built up like where they put in a bathroom and toilet and
Mhm.
stuff. They kind of raised the floor to run the plumbing and all,
Mhm.
and but there was a rock wall that went, a low rock wall that went across the front of it, and
Around the entire circumference,
well, it turns out that it went around the entire block.
but we didn't know
We
that
didn't know
'cause we
that.
couldn't see it.
And Don said, well, yeah, this was actually part of this community built center and park
And we were like, the
Yeah.
park.
and bird sanctuary. So then we got to looking, and it was owned by three different people.
Right.
Where it was all split up. So we had Don reach out, and we ended up buying all of it. So we got it all back together under one.
Yes, from the different property owners.
From the different property owners. So we got it all back together, and then we started digging it out.
Right.
And we had a crew there, Hernandez brothers.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Hernandez.
Yeah, Eric Hernandez and his brother. We brought them in and had them come in and help us clear out the brush. And it was interesting because in the park itself, there's another big staircase that went up into it. That's halfway down the block, but you couldn't see it until they dug it out.
It was so wooded that we had no idea that it was a park.
Right.
We just thought it was a overly grown lot that
Right.
was next to the library.
But we found there were 6 picnic tables that were original tables built by the WPA with 2 barbecue pits that they had built. There were 3.
Well, and then we found out there was a 7th.
Right. Then we found a 7th table up in there that was up toward the top of the hill within it, that nobody can tell us where that table came from.
Right.
And it's crazy because when we calculated it, the tabletop itself was like 2,500 pounds. And it's native sandstone. So somebody carried that in there at some point in the last 90 years, but nobody could tell us how it got there or where it came from.
Yes, nobody could account for it whatsoever.
But the park itself had multiple terraces in it with some rock line channels that were built to run the water through
waterways.
And so we had to get all that cleaned out. And it was really cool when it rained and the water actually do what it's supposed to do.
So beautiful.
But what we found in the process was because the vines and everything had grown up and blocked the channels, the water came down and against the fireplaces of the library.
Yes, it had beautiful
because it had
twin
had 2 fireplaces that were the 2-story fireplaces.
Yes.
And they were all of it was double walled.
Yes.
That native sandstone, and it was like 18-inch thick walls. and
Right.
but they'd settled and created some foundation issues, and we ended up having to put in a bunch of piers to stabilize that. But anyway, all of that to say, we got so caught up in that
Right.
and redid it, and we did it. Actually, we're turning it into a venue with a, like a wedding venue or something. So downstairs can be used for the
For the
event.
reception hall,
Upstairs could be used for a
the bridal
studio apartment for the bridal suite.
Yeah.
Put in a bathroom, did all that, and it was
And the
gorgeous.
outside was the
And
outdoor
and
wedding venue
an outdoor wedding
grounds.
venue, and we actually did have one wedding there
Before
before
we
we
had to move
before
to
we had to
Missouri.
move.
Yeah.
But we finally got it all done. I think we stayed the night there one night.
It was the most
Um,
sensational moment.
yeah, we stayed the night there one night, but never got to use the bathtub in it.
No.
Right.
Poured and poured
we
poured our
poured
hearts
everything
blood.
into that, and then we said, "Hey, we're going to put this on the market." And when we figured all that, settled all that down, and then we had
Before it even went on
before it even
market.
went on the market, we actually had the offer that we wanted for the house
But one of the things I'd
and
like to
property.
mention, yes, one of the things I'd like to mention, and I don't want to forget, is that through all of this, my I have a friend named or we have a friend named Kelly, and she had always seen how I was constantly redoing furniture and doing things in our home and everything. And so when she saw that I was sharing the different things that we were renovating and stuff in Texas, and heard about us having having just bought the library, she reached out to me and said, "Tammy, you have got to start a Facebook page, and you've
Yeah.
got to journal you have to journal your journey through your renovation. You guys." And so she said, "Have you ever thought about doing something like that?" Well, I'd had one other of our friends that had told me that I should start a YouTube channel and things like that a few years before that, but I just wasn't sure. And so anyway, I did. I went ahead and I started a page. It at first was called the Historic Poteau Library. And then we eventually we had this outpouring of people that just started connecting with us on that page. I honestly thought we would never have more than 300 followers in that tiny little community, but somehow it exploded to close to 10,000 people on our page. And but anyway, we ended up eventually naming the page String of Pearls.
Right.
And our community just stayed so connected with us and just made us feel at home. And were so supportive and encouraging.
But that's a
And
danger in and of itself too, though, right? Not we appreciate the engagement, but you
absolutely,
become so involved in having to keep the content right, and that's one thing as
yes,
a creator, right? It's
yes,
crazy the amount of time that goes into doing the podcast and
absolutely,
doing the sites and the promotion and all that. So you
yes,
can get caught up in that.
absolutely. And thank you so much for winding us back around to this. But I just wanted to say that there were times that I've always tried to be very transparent. I believe I mentioned that early, but yet you do want to be strong, and you are trying to be that. You're trying to be everything you think someone needs, not necessarily because you are that kind of person that just wants to give of yourself so freely, but because you see someone else and they're hurting, you try to step in. And so, not only trying to be the wife, the mother, the grandmother, a community leader, now a different type of situation that we've never walked in before. And so, the best friend, by that time we'd already lost all of our parents. So, I didn't have um, the love and responsibilities that come with being a daughter anymore, right?
Right.
Or a care provider, caretaker, or whatever in that aspect. But I still had steered from taking care of parents and children to steering into pitching in and helping with grandchildren, loving on them, and just the responsibilities that come with every move and everything that was entailed in every move. And then, not only trying to keep one home down, but keep a second home down, which, in our lifetime when we were younger, we never in our lives would have imagined owning two homes at one time.
Right.
Never. And so now basically we not only own one home, but we own two homes, we own three homes,
Right.
because we weren't restoring it to be a library again. We were restoring it
To be a home.
to be a home.
Right.
And so our ultimate goal, if we'll be honest, our ultimate goal was that you would take short early retirement. We were planning to move to the Worcester, and we were at first we had thought about moving at the library and making that our home, and then making the lake house a vacation rental. But then we both knew after visiting with Dawn and more detail and everything, and everything just ended up working out to where it just made sense to make that into a wedding event venue. Because Michael had always wanted to have a wedding chapel as a minister. I always wanted to have a bed and breakfast. And with the way time had evolved and changed, it only made sense to make it into a wedding venue during the season, and in the off season, make it into an actual vacation rental so it can be used year round. So keeping all that in mind, trying to keep content to make everyone happy, not happy. I don't think, just trying to keep our presence. I wasn't ever trying to keep everyone happy. But there is a major pressure. Any of you that have any type of media outlets that you pour into, the time, the dedication that Michael mentioned earlier. And so, yeah, I have lost myself over the years.
So we did that. We got it ready. And then before we really enjoyed it, we moved to Missouri.
Exactly. And to enjoy it.
So then we ended up selling it because while we could maintain the property in Claremore, it was way too far to deal with the Worcester and Poteau properties.
Right.
So we ended up selling those.
Right.
In the process. And but sold them fully furnished as functioning
homes,
right?
Yes,
and
as functioning homes.
And one of them was a functioning Airbnb.
Not just fully furnished. I mean, they were packed head to toe. What do they call it? Was it called? Turnkey ready.
Yeah.
Where they were viable businesses, or you could literally just pack a suitcase in and just move in. You didn't have to bring a single thing.
Yep.
It even had your shampoos and everything.
Yeah. So we get to Missouri and jump right into the next project.
Well,
right?
we stayed. We took like a sabbatical for a year, but yes, basically went straight from. We leased a home for a year, and then we jumped right back in.
But while we leased that home for a year, we still had those properties in Poteau. Right, you were traveling back and forth.
I was taking care of the properties because Michael had his responsibilities in Missouri.
Yeah. So then after a year, we found that.
I said a sabbatical. It wasn't a sabbatical.
It was horrible.
But I just meant that we didn't own and we didn't jump in immediately.
Right.
To purchase another property.
Right. But then we ended up finding the old farmhouse.
Oh my God.
It was what?
3,500
1865 farmhouse, which was great. It was it was one of the first 3 homesteads in Lawrence County.
Yeah.
There at Mount Vernon. So here's talk about Mount Vernon and how special it is, because Mount Vernon is incredibly special.
It is.
And there's a whole story. There's a whole story around that where we encountered them years ago.
Yes, we'll talk about that some other day. Yes.
Yeah. So just remind us on that one, and we'll tell you later. But the anyway, so then we found the farmhouse, and the farmhouse had what we wanted, right? And more. You even had a full-size tennis court.
Yes.
That a farmer had put in at some
courtyard
point.
Garden.
Had a koi pond. It had all of that.
wooded trees, the beautiful flat land with all the apple
Right.
trees and blueberry bushes and grapes,
Yeah.
mulberry,
Elderberries,
elder. It had
pear tree.
everything.
Yeah. So anyway, so we went to town on that, and I think we did a good job of converting that into, because it was, if the original home was added on to 7 times
Mhm.
over the years, and the final edition was they doubled the size of it by putting on a totally separate,
Kind of like a lodge type
yeah,
experience.
more of a lodge type experience. So you had an 1860s farmhouse, which was an original 4 square on one end, and then on the other end you had the lodge. So we set it up where you had a central entrance, but you go right, you go to the farmhouse,
Well,
you
we
go left.
didn't set it up. The people
Well,
before us.
but we set it up. We set up with locking doors and stuff
Oh,
at
I'm
that
sorry.
point.
Yes.
So you could come in.
I'm sorry.
You could come in from the koi pond courtyard, or from the parking area into a central area, and then you could go right or go left. Go left went into our quarters, and then right went into the other part of the house. And there was a bunch of weird stuff happening at that house that we could talk about later. That
There was some
there
odd
was some odd
things.
stuff, but it was fun. And but anyway, so we got it done, and then about the time we got it finished, my job moved back to Oklahoma. So we were there for what, 2 years? We stayed there for 2 years, and that entire time was renovating it. So think about this: our first house we bought in Collinsville, Oklahoma, and we lived in it for 13 years. Or 10 years, 10 years,
14 years.
14 years.
Mhm.
We renovated it the entire time we lived there.
Yeah.
Right. Then our next house we bought,
Mhm.
we pretty much renovated it for most off and on
Right.
the whole time we lived there. Then we moved to Texas, and the first thing we did was renovate that house, and then had to re-renovate it before we'd sell it because the buyer had a lot of
We didn't
demands.
renovate it twice.
That felt
You're
like
just saying it felt like we
felt
did.
like it.
It wasn't the buyer.
Right, it wasn't the buyer.
Buyer's realtor had ridiculous
Right.
demands.
So then we bought, because the buyer, she was awesome.
She was
Yeah, she is.
sensational.
So then we bought the house in Claremore, and first thing we did was renovate it. Lived in a hotel for a month.
A month or a month and a half.
Yeah, 6 weeks or so while we were renovating it.
Yeah.
And as soon as we get settled in with that, we bought the place in Worcester. Fortunately, we didn't have to do a lot of renovations because they had done such a phenomenal job on it already.
Beautiful. Just decorating.
Yeah, so it's decorating and then do yard stuff, getting the, because it had that massive hill down behind it.
Right.
And then we bought the library, and it was renovation the whole time that we had it.
Right.
And then bought the Missouri, renovating it. Right. So all of these, it was like renovation, never settling back, and enjoying it.
We never took time.
Right.
One.
So in that process, though, it became about what we were doing and not about who we were.
Right.
Same time, raising your kids, right? Then the grandkids, and then
and pouring into the community.
And then pouring into the community, and
friends of the Collinsville Library president for 3.5 years.
Right.
Everything, and church responsibilities, business responsibilities.
Yeah.
And you're mentioning these things, and all these other things are also popping up.
Right. So you got all of this going on, and now that season has passed, right? And we've talked about, hey, we are, we're about to go out on the road and start traveling, and we'll be doing a lot of this from the road. But in the meantime, of course, our son is resetting his life, and he's living with us, and he's just now moved out, in the process of moving out, just got his place yesterday. And so we're so proud of him, and happy for him. And so it really does kind of free us up. Got a few things here we have to finish out, but the season we're in then,
right,
is right. I don't know. I've left corporate world, so I'm doing this. I'm throwing myself into the books and into the 2 podcasts, and trying to really get the coaching thing going and getting some traction there.
Right.
But my life has always really been about identity, is what I've done, right? Not necessarily who I was, because I think men are more wired that way.
Right.
Women are more, and I know this is a generalization, and I'm sorry if I don't mean it to be that way, but it is. Women are more relationally wired, right?
But that is
Yeah.
true. I mean, you're not trying
Yeah.
to put anyone in a box.
Yeah.
That's how men are. That's
Right.
how men are wired, and how women are wired.
So now we're at the point though that all of this is gone, right? So for you, right, on the relationship piece, because you've been lost in the transaction piece for so many years,
Right.
right? What does that mean for you during this transition stage, right?
Yeah, that's what I was telling you this morning. Is that I have when you and I were having our morning coffee. Is that I honestly, I'm not quite sure. But uh when this podcast was birthed just this week, um earlier, man, I was like, what would I like to see, you know, this flourish out to in all of its glory? What would I hope um that at the end of what we're trying to create here, what do I see that looking like? And I guess whenever I got to thinking about it a little deeper, my hope was that this is a place that people can come to bring their morning coffee, their afternoon tea, or feel like that they can curl up to right before they go to bed. That at the end of the day, women who have struggled finding themselves, if she is having difficulty, at the end of the day, she just feels like that she has wrapped up in the most cozy blanket, and that whatever our words are, whatever happens to be the daily share for that moment, that it just embraces her,
Right.
and then it speaks to his heart, and that if whoever is on the other end, whatever things that we're visiting about that day, if it resonates with us, hopefully to some degree or to very much a degree, that it will resonate with them, or perhaps maybe not where they're at in this season in their
Right.
life, but they have found themselves there. And that if they haven't found themselves in that season, that they will be able to say, wow, okay, I think I've learned a few
Right.
things of what not to do or what to do, right?
Right.
By listening to us.
Yeah.
But, and I digressed, but I just need to find myself
Right.
again. I'm just at the point of needing to find myself again.
Right.
And that's also what I hope will emerge through this podcast, is that, you know, our viewers, our listeners will actually get to see me emerge from from a cocoon to this
Right.
beautiful being that I don't know if I've ever even
Yeah.
experienced her.
Yeah. Because for those who haven't heard or maybe haven't said it on air, I jokingly refer to this as our weekly counseling session. Uh,
Oh my goodness.
but no, it's just a joke though. But it's true though, right? There's a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that we encounter that allow us to hide from who we really are, right? And give us an excuse and a reason not to put ourselves out there because maybe we've been hurt. We don't want to get hurt again. Maybe we've been rejected. We don't want to be rejected again, right? Whatever it is, but it's that excuse. It's that thing that says, okay, I'm so caught up in this, I just lost sight of even that. So maybe excuse isn't the right word. Maybe it's the distraction that we need to keep us from being real and honest with ourselves.
Well, I know that, the majority of our marriage, I can say probably, I would say 85% of the time, you have always been very honed in on your mission in life, on who you are, and you carry yourself extremely well.
Well,
And
thank you.
it is, I mean, we all have moments where we're just unsure, we're not quite positive, but I feel that you've always been very fortunate to kind of know your direction and everything. And me, I actually, even though I may to some people seem so put together and things, it has not necessarily been the case. I have struggled, and probably more so because I have always dived into so dove dive anyway, whatever, into so many things in life that I forget to do what you always mention the importance of doing, and that is taking the time to pause.
Right.
And so, one of the things that has just really visited me more times recently than I would like is conversations that I've had with my granddaughter, our granddaughter, not my granddaughter, but sitting down with her and visiting and just trying to create that beautiful relationship with her, trying to instill in her that she is enough. And always reminding all of our grandchildren, but she's the only, well, we have our step granddaughter as well. And she is just as valuable to my heart. But the younger one, she is always the one who visits more often. And so I've always tried to instill into all of our grandchildren how valuable they are and how they are more than enough. And
Right.
for them to recognize their gifts and talents and what they have to offer to life early.
Right.
And I think that she's at the point that she's starting to recognize things. And, you know, she has mentioned things, I've always tried to set Grammy and granddaughter days to the side with her every visit. You always try to purpose with one or more of the grandsons when they're visiting
Right.
to have that one-on-one time with them. And then we do also vice versa, where you spend time with the granddaughter and I spend time with the grandsons. But with her, I want her to know, and I want all of our grandkids to know how loved they are. But being a girl myself, it's extremely important that your girl, it's extremely important that she learn early that her value does not come from her friends, from what others see in her, from what
Yeah.
she thinks is expected of her from social media and from magazine ads and things. Her self-worth needs to come from the inside, and
Right.
it needs to start early.
So I was actually recording an episode of Lead Well Lit Whole podcast this morning, interviewing one of the Eagles in my life, Larry Kerr.
Right.
And one of the things Larry and I talked about was understanding who you are, the core
Yes.
of knowing who you are, because that would then guide your every decision, right? The things you're doing today, the decisions you're making today are really setting the foundation and the strategy for everything you're going to do in life.
That's
And
right.
and the younger you can start developing that core, your character, your values, and then you use that as the filter that every decision is made off of, then it's easier to not lose yourself
You're
in the
right.
process, right? Not lose yourself to your friends, not lose yourself to the social media or to the whatever else that may be out there, to the Google, right? And
Right.
with him, I asked him, I said, okay, so what is, if you were going to throw one challenge to the listeners, what is the most important thing they could be doing? I said, and make it a hard challenge. So make it an easy challenge.
Right.
And um, he said, honestly, he said, I would challenge them to take 10 minutes and just silence everything, reconnect with God, reconnect with nature, reconnect with silence,
Right.
and then just breathe. And then as you do that, then you'll start seeing and knowing and understanding who you are.
Right.
Right. You start re-identifying with that. You know, one of the songs that we recently wrote and produced, right? It's called From the Barn to the Battle.
Right.
And it's based on the life of Gideon. And in it, we talk about we're the where the angel said, "You're not who you think you are." And I think a lot of us, we get this picture in our head, we get this image because we feel pressured to be this or that or whatever it may be, but it's really not who we are. And I think that's what you're talking about, right? Yes, knowing your value, knowing your worth, knowing your foundation, so that it's harder for you to get lost
Right.
down the road.
Well, and that's kind of where I found myself over this past year and a half, honestly, is at a place in life, well, we're not renovating homes. We're not, constantly on the road. And it is an adrenaline rush when you get into constantly being on the road with travel, constantly um, not coming up with the next project, but knowing you have this project that you've got to complete, and knowing you have to have all these other projects completed to reach the ultimate goal of
Right.
what you have to have done. Uh, Having all of that honestly just cleaned off my plate over the past year and a half,
Right.
and just being back home with family and not having had that opportunity in such a long time, it has taken a very, once again, I find myself trying to figure out my identity. And I don't know if the women who are listening to this, if they struggle with that on a constant, if that's just something, and this is just my life situation. This has nothing to do with everyone else's life situation.
Right.
So, maybe women struggle with this at all, all aspects, no matter where you're at in life, a constant battle. But I know when I was young, we were extremely active and
Right.
everything. But I had a great sense back then of who the heck I was. I mean, there was a time for a bit where I got lost in being everyone's everything, as far as, my mom and dad's daughter, or, my host's wife, or the kid's mom, or, anyway,
I would say
it's
Michael's hot wife is what I would say.
oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said all that to say, and I got sidetracked, but after visiting with my granddaughter a little bit, you know, I found out that she's starting to ask questions. As she's getting older, she's starting to take notice. And this visit, I just kept reassuring her, re-emphasizing, not reassuring, re-emphasizing to her that she is enough, and that I wanted her to learn while she's young the importance of not taking on so many things, that she, as she gets older, begins to lose who she is.
Right.
And so, and I told her, and I know I told her these things because I know I'm struggling myself.
Right.
And if we can, get into a habit of early learning the value that comes with understanding our self-worth, and the things that we are willing to put ourselves into, and the things that we're going to say, what, I'm gonna say, what, I appreciate you wanting to include me in that, but I really just have a lot going on right now. And for me to stay in a good place health wise for myself, I just can't take on anything else right now.
You've been listening to that
What?
video that I'm working on.
What video?
I'm working on that training video,
Oh,
and
yes.
and in that
And I
video,
have, but I mean, that's my own thoughts as well.
but in that video, or in that training session, what I say and what I bring to one section is saying no
Mhm.
opens the opportunity to saying the right yes. Right.
Oh, that's true.
Because
That
we
is
get
true.
we get so caught up. Because another thing I've talked about in there, and I've talked about this many times in life, is there are seasons in life, and during this season, I'm supposed to carry this load, or these are my tasks, or this is my thing for this season.
Right.
But when I move to the next season, I have to let that go so I can grab the next. But what a lot of us do is we want to hang on to that, and we want to try to carry it and the next and the next and the next until we're overwhelmed.
Right.
And I bring it back to, going to the grocery store and trying to carry in all your bags, carrying them all in on one trip.
Right.
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 And
Which I am notorious
sure,
for doing.
and I have to, and everybody else is, right. It's a thing.
It's just one and done.
Can I do it? But the problem with that is,
Right.
if you're not careful, you're going to carry too much and you're going to drop something. You're going to break in the eggs. You're going to break in something else. I mean, I got lucky the other day that the watermelon that I'm trying to carry 12 bags in one hand and grabbing a watermelon in the other hand.
Yeah.
And so if I drop it and it fell,
but it didn't
bust.
It
and
did not.
probably
It's just surprising.
sweetest melon we've had this year.
Yeah.
But we do that though.
Yes.
Right. And it's, you're the oldest child.
Right.
Right. And we're both from very blue collar homes. So it was all about working, and it was about owning your responsibilities and pitching in.
Yes.
And right. We both worked and took our money we made and give back into the household to help with stuff. And so we learned how to pick up and how to do.
Right.
What we were never taught was how to let go. Right.
Wow.
And that's a skill set. But we do it with tasks, we do it with responsibilities, we do it with relationships, we do it with hurts, and we do it with fears, and we do it with all of that, right?
Wow.
All of these are weights that carry that just add up over time, right? Because nobody wakes up one morning and just says, "Oh wow, I've lost who I am. Right, I need to fix that."
No, we don't.
It happens. It happens over time. There's a gentle awareness that comes, or it builds up to the point that there's a meltdown.
And
Right.
that's exactly where I had.
Yeah.
I say I've been saying I've been experiencing this, but the thing is, I had been experiencing it, and the thing is, I had that meltdown a handful of days ago with you. Once again, just trying to be honest and keeping things real with everyone. Michael and I have never in our lives pretended to be perfect. I know everyone has always been so supportive and everything, but we've always just been very honest in who we are. But, you don't go around telling everyone every day of the week that you had a complete meltdown.
Yep.
That's something that, even though when you try to be transparent and real with people, you just don't always just share things like that.
Yeah.
Because that's being very raw and just sharing part of an emotional part of yourself that you're just not sure if you're willing to step out and admit your shortcomings of things. But that's where I found myself at a handful of days ago. And that's whenever I also came to the realization that things have to change. And so I want to get back to, I posted a picture of myself on social media for my publishing page, and it was only literally a handful of years ago, but yet over the last 3 years ago, the last 3 years, I have aged so incredibly much that I am not that
Right.
vibrant soul that you see,
Well, it goes back to the conversation with Bella, right, about self-care, right? The hair and the things like that you do for yourself.
Right, that I don't
That
do.
but that a person should do
Yeah,
for
Bella,
themselves, right?
our granddaughter Bella had asked if I know how to curl hair. When she was little and things, I would curl her hair, play with her hair, and I'd fix myself up and everything, paint our nails and everything. But she's gotten older and she has not seen me do that with her,
Right.
when she's here. And she definitely hasn't seen me do that with myself,
Right.
And she got my wheels to turning, and one time she said, "Granny, why do you fix your hair that way?" And she was probably about 2 years ago. That's, I guess, she's 11 now. And so, at that point, I guess her watching Big Sis primp and get ready for her days and everything and stuff, she started taking notice back then. And, 2 years ago, I should have saw that as a sign that my self-care I would take time to really fix my hair up and my makeup up and things like that. And I know this isn't geared towards men. I mean, this is a show that's geared towards men and women, and I don't look to veer off.
Men lose themselves too, right?
Do they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You always seem for the foremost put together. I know you have days that, and I know it drives you insane if you don't get a haircut or whatever. But I'm just saying, um, I don't see that in you as much as I feel that sense in myself. And so after visiting with her, after having my meltdown, after she went back home, and knowing where God is taking us to, it's so funny because it's the craziest thing. I wear a thumb ring, a spoon ring on my thumb, and Michael and I talked over and over again how I have like this gypsy spirit because he and I have traveled so much, and that's where I get my energy and things, as well as whenever I'm diving into projects. But I found this little ring and I ended up losing it. It broke my heart. And months later, we were at a little craft fair, a vintage craft fair. Michael happened to see that they were selling spoon rings, and he asked if he could get me one, and it just delighted my heart because I do have a bohemian spirit. And any gypsy girl, she always has her spoon rings that she wears and everything. And even though I don't dress how my heart feels and everything, my mind and I is always drawn to this silly ring. And I think I've always worn it to remind me when I glance down at who I am to the core. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so after my visit and my little crazy, ridiculous meltdown that I had a handful of days ago, I've just been praying and saying, God, I know this journey that you're taking us on. Over the course of the last several months, Michael and I have gained some weight that we're not excited about. And so I want to take this journey and this mindfulness and start back where I know that I am destined to be. And that's that beautiful emerging butterfly soul that I was created to be. And so that's where I think that our viewers can be quite pleased as they stand with us and encourage us. Yeah. I think they're going to see some major transformation, not only in me, but in you, because you are stepping out into this beautiful new world of finishing and fulfilling a calling that was set on your life early in life. And that's not only continuing to lead through your podcast, but through your speaking engagements. But this, it's a cool season to see that you're finally getting all of these thoughts out on paper, and from on paper, I mean, on the screen, onto paper and into books and into literature that you're able to get into people's hands. And it's beautiful.
Right now, it just feels like a bunch of seed that's been thrown.
It is. It is seed. And that's what God spoke to my heart the other day and said, you're just preparing for the harvest, you're planting, and you're going to start seeing the major fruits of your labor. Just keep traveling the road that I've set you on and don't deter from it.
Oh, that's fair. I was actually a very good word. I was just making some notes as we were kind of talking through. Me, I'm like very action oriented, right?
Right.
Got to be there's a plan, there's a path, there's a way to get there, and everything can break down into a core value.
Right.
And really, when we're there, because not if, when, because we will all be there, right? There's a way back. There's a path back to refinding yourself, right? And for me, and I'm not mansplaining, I'm just from my perspective, right? Really, it starts with pausing,
right,
and assessing, reflecting.
Right.
In that training, we talked about a reset week, right? Where you reset yourself, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, just pause, take inventory of really what matters the most to you, not what's expected of you.
Right.
So what matters the most to you? And then once you kind of figure that out, and maybe you know already, maybe you don't, but get somewhere quiet. Watch the hummingbirds, fly around. Watch the butterflies. Listen. There's nothing more beautiful than hearing the ocean waves come in, or the wind blowing through the pine trees, or wherever you may be.
Right.
Whatever speaks to you at your core. And I say it goes back to the rhythm. Everybody has an internal rhythm. Whatever resets your internal rhythm back to what's natural. And then revisit your core values, right? What's non-negotiable about your identity? What have you allowed to be stolen, or what have you hidden that really is a non-negotiable? Well, this is really who you are, right? You brought up several times that gypsy, that exploration, that wonder, that magic, understanding that, right? That's core, really, who you are, right?
It is the core.
A childlike faith as you experience the magic of the real world, right? And then once you figure that out, then go back in and reclaim what your joy spots are, right? Find them. Don't let anybody steal them. I don't care if it's hobbies. I don't care if it's friendships. I don't care if it's the routines that we talked about the other day. Your routine of, right, with your devotionals, right, doing that, and you get so caught up in so everything else that you miss it.
Right.
Because you're task oriented, even if you're 5 days behind, you want to jump in on one day, just get caught up.
Right.
When that's not the intent of the devotionals.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So it's back to the intent of life, the intent of really what brings you joy.
Right.
Not just happiness, not just busyness, not just a checkbox, but real joy. And then setting the boundaries to protect that. Right. And I think that's where I don't care so much if the people are mad at me. I have no problem telling people no, right? You do. And so I can maintain that. I can kick everybody out, just have my quiet spot, right? Like I can sit in a room and put myself in a quiet spot so I don't hear a single thing that's being said, right? I think it's just a talent that men have been gifted with. But, but anyway, so setting those boundaries to protect that. And then as you do, then you can start establishing that one small act each day that's just for you. Right. That self-care until you get that rhythm built back up, right? Because it's like exercising. You can't just jump right in and do it all on day one. Right. It's one thing. Get a party rhythm again. Add another thing. Make that party rhythm again. Then another thing and make it part of the rhythm again. Because revisiting your core, returning to your core, doesn't mean you abandon people. You're not abandoning all this, but you're only picking up that load that's your load. Right. Right. And part of that load is you, because the greatest gift that we can bring to our relationships and into this world is ourselves. Right. Right. And if we don't take the time to be fully present, then what we present to them as a gift is a worn down, half present version. True. Right? And that's not what they need. What God created you for, what God created me for, what God created all of us for, is when we present ourselves as that living sacrifice, that living gift, right? That it's whole, it's vibrant, it's just as God designed us, and it's filled with that light, because the world needs that light.
That's right. I'm ready to let my light shine again after all this time. I'm looking forward to hearing. I hope that I don't even know where we're at in time today.
We're well past time.
Well, my ultimate hope is that something, and I hope that everyone didn't feel that I was just babbling on. And if so, I'm not going to apologize, because
we're babbling.
This is a new season of exploration in so many areas of our lives that I'm excited about and things, but I did want to be transparent. I don't want anyone on the other side of this listening device to feel like Tammy has it all together and she's always had it together. And it's hard for me to be around women sometimes who they have a persona of they set a persona in place for people to make them feel like their lives are so extremely together. And I know it isn't like that for anyone. And so some of us do have our stuff together a little bit more than others, absolutely. But we all have our struggles. And there's nothing wrong with having a self-confidence and trying to bring that self-confidence out. But, there's nothing wrong with also being just being honest and raw and saying, I don't have it all together. Does it mean that I'm going to say that every single time we have a conversation? Absolutely not. But sometimes it's just nice for us to allow other people to see a side of ourselves that might resonate with them. That feels like, oh wow, I'm not the only one going through this. And so that's where I hope that being transparent with you guys today has kind of hopefully encouraged you and say, and I want to say that I hope through this journey that maybe you're experiencing it too at the same time that I'm experiencing it. And maybe we can grow together. We can just emerge into these beautiful beings together.
Yeah, because wherever you're at, whatever path you're walking, you're not walking alone.
Right.
And that's why we appreciate you being with us, because we're walking this together. We name this Every Mile with You,
Reason.
but there's a purpose for that, right?
Yes.
It's with each other for sure, but it's also with each and every one of you, right? To connect, and we love those connections.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to each of us being free to bring the very best gift of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right. And above all, this week, as you're finding time and doing the reflection and breathing, give yourself grace.
Yes.
Grace is one of the most undervalued gifts that you can give yourself.
That's right.
The world, there's people lining up in the world to tear you down. Don't tear yourself down.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time on Every Mile with You.
Thank you. Until next time.
We go.